So last class, if you remember, Chiranjeevi, good morning. So Kanika, everyone, as you understand, last class we studied about hysteresis, right? Hysteresis. So what was hysteresis? It was the lagging behind of which quantity? Lagging behind of magnetization or magnetizing field. Who was lagging behind? Let me increase the magnetization. Okay. Yeah, magnetization. So that lagging behind of magnetization during the cycle of magnetization and demagnetization. So when I mean, what I mean by cycle of magnetization means you take some ferromagnetic material, put it inside a solenoid, increase the current. So as the current flows like this, magnetic field will be like this. So this magnetic field will magnetize the material. Then you decrease the current, then you apply current in opposite direction. Matlab first current was this way, now current should be this way. Okay, so now current will go, magnetic field will be this way. So now the material will get demagnetized. So this cycle is called magnetization and demagnetization. So during this cycle of magnetization and demagnetization, the magnetization is found to be lagging behind whom? Lagging behind whom? This magnetizing field. Okay, students. So that phenomenon is what is called hysteresis. It has nothing to do with history word. It has to do with lagging behind. Now, what was this quantity called? This is, you can see from the graph, this is the amount of magnetization left in the material even when magnetizing field has become zero. So even when this coordinate is zero, this coordinate has some value. Yes, it is called retentivity. So retentivity is the amount of magnetization left in the material even after the magnetizing field has become zero. Matlab, even after the army has gone, how many people are still looking in the same direction? So that will give you the idea of how much magnetization is left in the material. Who remembers this quantity? What is this quantity? This is the reverse magnetizing field. Yes, this is the reverse magnetizing field which is required to make magnetization zero. Matlab, I told no, after army has gone, some people are still looking in the same direction. So now another group of army is coming and they are doing reverse. What reverse they are doing? Before they were making them see in the same direction. Now they are saying, hey, look in opposite, different direction. So this is the reverse magnetizing field which is required to make magnetization zero. This is called coercivity. Now students, depending on the material, you can Google and search, depending on the material, this graph will look different. The overall shape will be same. The shape will be same, but for some material, the graph will be thinner. For some of them, it will be thicker. Okay, so the overall shape will be same. But how much exactly is retentivity? How much exactly is coercivity? That will depend from material to material. So today we will study what kind of material we should choose in order to make, number one, permanent magnets, number two, electromagnets. Okay. So first let us study. You can put this under note only because these are very small topics, 1 mark, 2 mark question. So under note you can write material to make permanent magnet. Permanent magnets, I hope you understood, right? Those that are found in compass, those that are found in your fridge, those that are used in physics laboratory. Okay. So material to make permanent magnets should have what kind of characteristics? First one, it should have high retentivity. Obviously, because retentivity is the amount of magnetization left in the material. So if you want to make a magnet obviously the amount of magnetization should be large, because when you use a magnet, you are not constantly passing it inside a solenoid, right? You are using it outside the solenoid. Once you have magnetized it, then you are using the magnet. So whatever magnetization is left in the material, that should be large. So first property is it should have large retentivity. What about coercivity? What is coercivity? The amount of reverse magnetic field which is required to demagnetize the material. It is the amount of reverse magnetic field which is required to demagnetize the material. Now think, if this is very small, then it means somebody can easily demagnetize your magnet. Do you want that? Do you want somebody to easily demagnetize your magnet? No, sir, right? So therefore, it is very important that whatever coercivity is there, that also should be large or small. Coercivity should be high. So it should have large coercivity. And the third part is what that has nothing to do with the graph, but it should have high permeability. Why high permeability? That will ensure that the magnetic field is strong, right? Because magnetic field formula, if you remember, is mu Ni. So if this mu is more, then the magnetic field in the material will be large. So please remember these three important parameters, okay? So what are the three important characteristics a material should have in order to make a permanent magnet? Number one, large retentivity, large coercivity, and it should have large permeability. So this is what we want for permanent magnets. Next one, we will discuss for, let me write here only, material to make electromagnets. Electromagnets. Now please understand, electromagnets are not permanent magnets. Electromagnets is, the beauty of electromagnets is you can magnetize it, you can demagnetize it depending on your wish. So basically it works on, you pass current, then it gets magnetized. Then you reverse the current, it gets demagnetized. Not like permanent magnets. So electromagnets are run through current and they can be magnetized, and therefore it will become magnet whenever you want. And whenever you don't want it to behave like magnet, that time you will demagnetize the material. Can you tell me one usage, very common usage in school you study of electromagnet? Some people will make projects also, metal scraps, yeah. Bell also you can say, correct? So in metal scraps, that is very common, right? That cranes will be there. So they will go on top of some big dustbin or something, and whatever metals are there, that material, we will make it magnetize first. So it will attract all the metals, then it will come this side, and then we will demagnetize the material. So all the metals will be dropped. Okay, once you demagnetize the material, it will no longer be magnet. So it will not attract the iron pieces. So they will fall down. So that way you can separate the iron scraps and ferromagnetic objects from the regular other objects. Okay, so materials to make electromagnets should have. Now please understand, one thing is 100% sure, they should have small coercivity. Yes or no? Because it should be easy for you to demagnetize the material. So this coercivity should be small so that you can easily demagnetize. Understood this part, students? Or you want more explanation? Because this coercivity tells you what? It is the amount of reverse magnetic field required to demagnetize the material. So in electromagnet, you want to switch it faster, right? People do not have time in life, no? So they want to do things faster. So understood, right, everyone? Okay. So it should have small coercivity. Now, in order to have small coercivity, the retentivity, whether it is large or small, it doesn't matter. Okay. So usually in textbooks, you will say this is not mentioned, but we will write small only. So small retentivity. Because why that retentivity is not so important here is because whenever you are using a material as electromagnet, you are going to pass current and magnetize it. So that time you are interested in this much magnetization, this much, not this much. This is important for permanent magnets, right? But still they have mentioned small retentivity in most of the books. So I'm just writing small retentivity. Again, the more important point is it should have small coercivity and it should have high permeability. So high permeability will make sure that when you pass current, the magnetic field produced will be strong. So high permeability, small coercivity. And usually, no, if this is small, this also will be quite small. Usually, okay, not all the time. So that's why maybe they have written in some books small retentivity. Let me draw it separately. So this is for one material, and then the name of the material is soft iron. Soft iron. Then you have another material which is usually chosen to make one of these two, either permanent magnets or electromagnets. And that one will look something like this. Okay. Okay. Something like this. So this will be much fatter than this one. Okay. So this will be fatter than this one. This is for steel. Now look here. Done. These two graphs are done. This is for soft iron. This is for steel. In our EPL, both the graphs are drawn together because computer generated graph. So it is easier for them to draw. Here, if I draw, no, it will be confusing for you. So you can analyze that diagram and see which one has more retentivity, which one has more coercivity between soft iron and steel. For our purpose, just look at these two graphs. Can you look at the two graphs and tell me which material is preferred for making permanent magnets? Which material should be used for making permanent magnets? Soft iron or steel? Steel, you can just observe. You can see the retentivity of steel is much larger than soft iron. Okay, and if you draw both the graphs together, students, if you draw both the graphs together, you will find that steel actually has little bit less retentivity than this. So steel has actually little bit less retentivity. However, we still use steel only because the coercivity is very large. Okay. So please make a note. Third point, due to large coercivity, of steel, it is used to make permanent magnets. Please write permanent magnets. Okay. So due to large coercivity of steel, it is used to make permanent magnets. And you can see very clearly that soft iron has a very small retentivity. Soft iron has a very small retentivity. So due to very small retentivity, coercivity of soft iron, it is used for electromagnets. It is used for electromagnets. So due to very small coercivity of soft iron, it is used for electromagnets. Now, one mark question has come in this question based on this topic, and that is, listen carefully. Okay, the area enclosed by the hysteresis loop. Hysteresis loop signifies what? So the area, this area. So you can see for steel, this area is large. In case of soft iron, the area enclosed by the loop was small. So the area enclosed by the hysteresis loop signifies what they will ask you. And the answer is, I will try to explain the answer. The answer is the heat loss. The heat loss during the cycle of magnetization. The heat loss during the cycle of magnetization. Heat loss, better you write. The heat loss, okay, whatever loss occurs during the cycle of magnetization. I will explain, but can you now tell me, if you want less loss, which one will you choose? Soft iron or steel? If you want less loss in the heat reason, you will choose soft iron, correct? And in transformers, there is a device called transformers where we will transmit electric power, electric energy from one place to another place. So later in alternating current chapter, I will be teaching you about transformers. So that time you will study in transformers, we use soft iron as the core. They may ask you why it is used. The answer is this: because by using soft iron, we reduce the heat loss during the cycle of magnetization. Now, why this heat loss? Why is the area equal to heat loss? Mathematically, it is very difficult to show. It will take a lot of time. It is not there for syllabus also. So no need to do it mathematically, but physically, let us try to understand. So look carefully. When the material is getting magnetized, what is happening to the atomic dipoles in the material? They are all aligned in one direction. Agree or not? When you pass current in the solenoid and there is external magnetic field this way, the atomic dipoles are all aligned in the same direction. Agree or not? When you are making it magnetize. Similarly, when you are trying to demagnetize it in the opposite direction, first you demagnetize, then you magnetize in the opposite direction. That time what will happen? All the dipoles will start orienting in which direction now? Opposite or same direction? Quickly answer. Opposite direction, right? So now imagine you have an iron rod. Imagine this is one iron rod. Ferromagnetic. And this is one magnet. Now this is North Pole, let's say North Pole, red color North Pole. Okay, so this is North Pole. So when I keep North Pole here, magnetic field will be this way, right? So all the atomic dipoles will be arranged this side. Then suddenly you do like this. Now when you do like this is South Pole. So South Pole means magnetic field will be this way now. So all the dipoles will now try to orient this way. So if you do like this, if you keep doing like this, matlab you magnetize, then you demagnetize, and then magnetize it in opposite direction. Again, demagnetize and magnetize in opposite direction. If you keep doing like this, imagine what is happening to the dipoles inside. Those millions and not millions, zillions and zillions and zillions of atoms inside are going crazy. They are going like this, then like this, then like this, then like this. There's a lot of movement will be there, lot of movement. And that movement, when such movements of your atoms happen, what is produced? When such movements of your atoms will happen due to friction, what will be produced? Heat will be produced. So that is one way of understanding why during the cycle of magnetization and demagnetization, the dipoles keep changing their orientation from here to here, here to here, and that movement results in heat. It is similar to the way things get heated in microwave oven. Of course, it is not magnetic field, but in microwave oven also you use microwaves to rotate the water molecules in the food. Why? Because the frequency of microwaves matches with the natural frequency of water molecules. So as the water molecules rotate, they rub against the other material, and that rubbing is what results in the heat. Okay. So that is one way of understanding why during the cycle of magnetization and demagnetization, the material gets heated. However, it is very difficult to prove mathematically to you that the area enclosed by the hysteresis is why it is equal to the heat loss. You guys can give a try to prove it mathematically if you are interested. Integration obviously we have to use, but it is not a very easy thing. It is not for syllabus also, neither for entrance syllabus. So we are not going to do it at present. Let us see if later we get time, we will try to solve it. But at present, we will not spend our time doing that. Is it okay? But try to remember this fact that the area enclosed represents or measures the heat loss during the cycle of magnetization and demagnetization. Okay, so this part is over. This magnetic materials part is over. Now we are going to talk about Earth's magnetism. Okay, so Earth's magnetic field. It will not take too much time. Today this chapter will be over, theoretically at least. Numericals we will do next class. So Earth's magnetic field. Can anyone suggest me any observation by which we can prove that yes, Earth has a magnetic field? There are few observations. Can anyone suggest any observation that shows to me that Earth, auroras and all are after I have explained to you, no, about that while teaching moving charge and magnetism chapter? Yeah, I think compass is a good simple. Yeah, compass is a simpler observation. So if you take a, listen carefully, okay? So observations. Observe, I think this is not very dark, no? Observations which lead to understanding that Earth has a magnetic field. So what are the observations? I will give you two observations at least. The first one, as some of you have suggested, is if you keep a freely suspended magnet. So you take a magnet, tie it on a string, and you suspend it freely. Freely matlab don't hold it. If you hold it, it will point wherever you want. Yes or no? If you hold it, it will point wherever you want. If you freely leave the magnet, it has been found that it always orients itself along north-south direction. It may not be exactly north-south. I will discuss that today. But it will always orient in one particular direction. Now, why is that happening? We already know. I hope everybody remembers that if you have a magnet which is free to rotate, and if there is no magnetic field anywhere outside, if there is no external magnetic field, then that magnet will stay there only. But if there is some external field this way, if there is an external field this way, what happens? You all know it experiences a torque, and ultimately in equilibrium the magnet will come this way, right? So from this orientation it will take this orientation. Actually it will oscillate, but after, because of friction and everything, damping forces will be there in the pivot. In the pivot there will be damping forces, friction forces. So ultimately in equilibrium it will come and align in the direction of magnetic field. So since a magnet, a freely suspended magnet near Earth, if you keep it, it always aligns in one direction. You keep it here, you leave it, it comes in this direction. You keep it here, you leave it, it comes in this direction. That means there has to be some external magnetic field this way. Agree or not? There has to be an external magnetic field this way. That's why the magnet is always coming in that direction. Agree or not? So that is how we understood that the Earth, now who will produce that external magnetic field? There is no magnet here and there. So it has to be Earth itself. Okay. So that is one. Okay, so a freely suspended magnet, a freely suspended magnet. An example of freely suspended magnet is nothing but compass, right? Some of you told. A freely suspended magnet always aligns along north-south direction. Okay, so the north of the north pole of the magnet always points towards the north. So it means basically that wherever is north, there must be some, south pole. That's why it is attracting the north, right? So we have to understand those things now. But one thing is clear, that there has to be some magnetic field in our space. And who is producing it? We have no other reason but to tell Earth. Another very nice example, which many people do not consider. Auroras also I liked it, but auroras will come much later, no? These discoveries were done much before. The second very important observation is existence of null points in the magnetic field of a magnet. Existence of null points. Bosch-Shock, okay, we can consider that also. So let us discuss this first. Existence of null points, okay, in the magnetic field of a magnet. What do you mean by null points? Null points means that point where the total magnetic field should be what? Null point, null. Total magnetic field should be what? 0. Okay. So if you listen carefully, okay. So if you take a bar magnet, north-south, okay, I hope you remember at axial point, the magnetic field is 2m mu naught by 4 pi 2m by r cube. Similar to the formula of electric field due to electric dipole. So using that formula directly I can write magnetic field due to magnetic dipole. At which point I wrote axial point. So you can see there is no reason for this to be 0. Yes or no? Where will be this 0? Can you tell me? When r is how much? Infinity. Only when r is infinity, matlab this distance, this is the observation point. So only when r is infinity, then you can expect magnetic field to be 0. But people have found experimentally that if you keep a bar magnet on the table and calculate magnetic field around, you find that there are some null points. Now, magnetic field of at axial point, in what direction it will be? This is north, this is south. At axial point, it will be this way. Right? Because at axial point, the direction of electric field was in the direction of dipole moment. So dipole moment is from south to north. So magnetic field also will be from south to north. I mean this way. So if people are finding that at this point there is a null point, what it means, students? There has to be another magnetic field this way. Agree or not? There has to be another magnetic field this way, which will cancel this magnetic field. Understanding or not? So that magnetic field, from where it is coming? So that is what we people have given the reason for this to be Earth's magnetic field. Okay. So all these small observations lead to people that Earth has a magnetic field. Now it was William Gilbert who did experiments with spherical magnets and all, and he tried to find how the magnetic field lines of Earth looks like. How the magnetic field lines of Earth look like. Okay, so try to concentrate here. So magnetic field lines of Earth. So let us imagine this is your Earth. This is the axis of rotation. So this is what we call geographic North Pole, and this is what we call geographic South Pole. Okay, so this is your geographic North Pole. Try to differentiate between geographic, and later I will tell magnetic North Pole. So try to differentiate. So this is the geographic North Pole. This is the geographic South Pole. So Earth is rotating this way. Okay. Now, William Gilbert and others found that the magnetic field of Earth looks something like this. Okay. It doesn't start from here. Okay. It starts somewhere here. Something like this. Let me not draw too many because I don't have space also. So something like this it looks like. Okay. It's at an angle. So in other words, the magnetic field of Earth looks like as if there is a giant bar magnet which is kept at some angle like that, with North Pole here and South Pole here, because Earth's magnetic field is going like this. So this is how the Earth's magnetic field lines look like. Okay. So if this is the Earth, it is not perfectly starting from the geographic South Pole. Slightly, I think this distance is around 500 kilometers something. I don't exactly remember. You can Google and check. So from somewhere here, it starts like this and goes like this. So it is at some angle. This angle is found to be approximately 11.3 degrees. 11.3 degrees. Now, listen carefully. If you stand, now most people live where? Most people live in the equator or near the poles. Most of the people live near the equator, right? So imagine I'm here. Now, if I'm here, how I will be standing? Like this. Right? That is how I'm standing, right? If I am on equator. So look carefully how the magnetic field lines are going. So if I am standing in the equator, magnetic field lines are going like this. They are almost parallel to the ground. Understood this part? Okay. Now think I am living somewhere in the poles. Maybe for some expedition I can go. So if I'm living near the poles, how the magnetic field lines look? They enter my head like this. Like this. They enter my head and go like that. May not be exactly vertical, but somewhat like that. Okay. Similarly, if you are standing here, it will be entering your head and going like that. Okay. Sorry, it will be coming out of your foot and going like this. So somewhat like this. So what I want you to remember, this is very important for later purpose. Okay. Near the equator, the magnetic field is approximately parallel to the ground. Near the poles, the magnetic field is what to the ground? What angle with the ground? Parallel to the ground, I should say 90 degree with the ground. So please remember these two facts. So I think now you can understand that if you take a compass in your hand, if you take a compass, that compass will have a freely suspended magnet. So that magnet will align itself along what? Magnetic field. So since the magnetic field is this way, your compass will stay that way. Like that. Okay. So it will point towards the north. Same thing here. Of course, if you are exactly here, where will the compass point? That is very interesting, because compass is usually used to find the North Pole. But if you reach here and you have a compass, what will be the needle doing? Now please understand, compass is some magnet which is free to move this way, horizontally. So in a compass, the magnet is free to move horizontally. But near the poles, how is the magnetic field? Vertical. Near the poles, how is the magnetic field? Vertical. So will this have any component in this direction? Will this vector have any component along the horizontal? No, it will not have. So therefore, the needle in the poles will not orient in any particular direction. It will be free. You just hit it, it will just shake, and then wherever at that point the pivot forces are acting, it will stay there only. So near the poles, the needle will not, have a specific direction. It will orient wherever you just wobble around. And the reason for that is very simple, because near the poles, the magnetic field is vertical. So that vertical magnetic field will not have horizontal component. That you know from first PU. A vector along y-axis has no x component. So since this magnetic field has no component horizontal, therefore the needle, which is free to move horizontally, that needle will not have any specific direction to align. But near the equator, it will align along the magnetic field. Okay. So here the angle made by magnetic field with earth is matlab with horizontal, with ground is 0. Here the angle made by magnetic field with ground is almost 90 degree. These two things you remember. Okay. The diagram which you made, just now I made. So these 2 points, if earth is rotating this way, this is called geographic north, this is called geographic south. And this axis is called geographic axis. Geographic axis. And the magnetic field of earth looks like as if there is a magnet which is kept at some angle like this. Okay, and this point is what we call magnetic north, and this point is where we call magnetic south. So though this is the point from where magnetic field lines start, we don't call this magnetic north. Otherwise, no students, it will create confusion. Because normally when people talk, they don't use the word geographic like that. They just say south. I'm going towards south. I'm going towards north like that. Or east of north, south, west of north, something like that they will speak. So they don't use the word geographic all the time. Therefore, if the same area, this place will be close to this only. So if the same place is given the name magnetic north, then it will be confusing, because the same area is, I am calling it geographic south also and magnetic north also. So it will be confusion. So to not create that confusion, physicists have called this point magnetic south only. But please remember, magnetic field lines start from here. The magnet which I imagined here has north pole here, remember. Now, do you think there is really a magnet? Do you think there is really a giant magnet which, I don't know, when earth was formed, somebody kept? Obviously, such stupid question you should not ask. There is no giant magnet. If there was any such magnet, what would happen? It would melt. Why it would melt? Because the temperature in the core is very high. So it is clearly that there is no any particular giant magnet or something. Then how do we know? How do we see? We know there is magnetic field produced by earth, but how do we explain it? What is the cause of the magnetic field? What is the reason for the magnetic field? Honestly speaking, we do not have a very, Abhishek is almost, that is the recent theory. We do not have any concrete evidence to say this is the cause or that is the cause. We don't have. So this is open right now. You people have scope to do research in this if you are interested. But one reason is what Abhishek has mentioned is the inner part of this earth will have molten iron. And as they rotate, as they move due to friction, they get charged. So as it rotates, it gets charged. And as charged objects or charged liquid is moving, what is that? When charged object is moving, when charged liquid is moving, what is that? Current or not? Current. And we all know current is the source of magnetic field. So that is one reason people are saying. However, we cannot be 100% sure about this, because people also know that the magnetic poles of earth are actually shifting. And they believe that many years ago the poles were ulta matlab here magnetic north was there, here magnetic south was there. Matlab long back magnetic field lines was not like this, it was like this. and for another some 100,000 years or something, it will stay like this. Then maybe next, after many 100,000 years, when some physics teacher will teach, maybe he will draw this way. Okay, so but right now it is this way, and this keeps on shifting. For example, when NCERT textbook was written, students, are you listening, all of you? When NCERT textbook was written, this place was in North Canada, but right now it is shifting towards Siberia, this point. So it is shifting towards Siberia. Similarly, this was in Antarctica, and now it is shifting towards some island. It is out of the coast of Antarctica. At least it is out, that much we know. So these points are not fixed points, they shift, remember. But that's why whenever you go for tracking and you are using any map and all, you have to very clear, very careful that the map is updated. If it is not updated, then you will be lost. Okay. Now this axis, what I call this axis, is called geographic axis, right? This axis is called magnetic axis. Magnetic axis. Now think carefully. Now in board it will never be clear, because in board I will not be able to draw sphere. Anything I draw, it will look like circle. No, if I draw any round object, it will look like circle. So imagine, please imagine. Think this is Earth. Usually in class it is very easy for me, because in class, no, I can move around. Here it is difficult. So imagine this is Earth. Now this is the geographic axis. Your magnetic axis is slightly tilt. Now imagine I live here. This is Earth, I live this side. So what I do, I make a vertical plane. Vertical plane means, let me try to show you. Yeah. So what I do, I make a vertical plane containing my place, wherever I am living, and geographic axis. So this is the geographic axis. This is where I live. So this plane is called geographic meridian. Geographic meridian. And your magnetic axis is at some angle. So another plane you make, another plane. This is another plane which contains your place and magnetic axis. Okay. So the planes will look like this. This angle is very important for us. Okay. So we will give a name to this angle. But before that, let me write the topic which is important for 3 marks. So the topic is magnetic elements. Magnetic elements of Earth's magnetic field. Magnetic elements of Earth's magnetic field. Basically, these are 3 quantities which will describe the magnetic field at a given place. What are these 3 quantities which are used to describe magnetic field at a given place? One will give you the strength of the magnetic field. Other will give you, the other 2 will give you direction. Because magnetic field is what quantity? Vector quantity. So to know a vector, what you should know? Magnitude and direction. Agree or not? Now to know the direction, be careful. Imagine this is ground. This is ground. Now if magnetic field is, let's say, going like this, let's say it's going like this. You know that at equator it is going like this. At equator. At poles it is going like this. At some other place, it may be going like this or like this, right? So let us say magnetic field is this way, right now, in my place. Now, if you give me this angle, 30 degree, do you think it is fixed? The direction is fixed? No, because this is 30 degree. This is also, all this will be 30 degree, right? Agree or not? So if you tell me angle between magnetic field and ground is 30 degree, let me try to explain this way. Imagine this is ground and this is magnetic field. I want to know where is magnetic field. You are telling me 30 degree from ground, 30 degree from ground. So if you give me only this angle, will I be able to know where is magnetic field? Yes or no? If you give me this angle. No, because this is also 30, this is also 30, this is also 30. All this will be 30, right? All this will be 30. So only giving this angle will not be enough. You have to give me this angle and this angle also. This angle also. So one of the angle is called inclination. One of the angle is called declination. So if you give this angle and this angle and this angle, one is vertically measured, one is horizontally measured. Then you will be able to know the direction. So that is why there are three parameters. Okay, the first parameter is called declination. Which I will give the symbol theta. So what is declination? For 1 mark if they ask, it is the angle, horizontal angle, remember, horizontal angle, this angle, okay, between geographic meridian and magnetic meridian. So it is the angle between geographic meridian and magnetic meridian at a given place. Please write at a given place. Okay, so as I told you, if you are living somewhere here, because Earth is 3D, no? If you are living somewhere here, draw one plane which contains you and geographic axis. That is called geographic meridian. Then you draw one more plane that contains you and magnetic axis. Okay, which is at another location, right? So that angle is what is called declination. And Earth's magnetic field will be where? Earth's magnetic field will be always in the magnetic meridian. So this is done, students. Definition is done. Declination means angle between the, I will draw diagram also, don't worry. It is the angle between geographic meridian and magnetic meridian. Then the second one is called inclination. This is very easy to remember. Inclination. This we write delta symbol. And it is also called dip. It is also called dip. Okay, angle of dip. It is the angle made by Earth's magnetic field with horizontal. Matlab, if magnetic field is in this direction, it will be, see, magnetic field is not only here, no, it will be here, everywhere. So if magnetic field is in this direction, like this, okay, then the angle made by magnetic field with ground, with horizontal, that angle, this angle is what we call inclination. So it is the angle made by Earth's magnetic field with horizontal in magnetic meridian. Why in magnetic meridian? Because Earth's magnetic field lies in this meridian. Done. Second one, three elements are there: declination, inclination. Inclination is called dip. Be careful about this, okay? Don't say declination is dip. The last one is the third. This is second one. The third one is horizontal component of Earth's magnetic field. Horizontal component of Earth's magnetic field. Now to define this is very difficult. Why? Because the topic itself is the definition. Yes or no? The name given to this, the name given itself is definition. So how to write definition? So we can write like this in the way textbooks will write. It is the component. It is the component of total Earth's magnetic field along horizontal. Now you may think, why sir, why vertical component has been has been rejected. Well, students, if you know horizontal component and you know those angles, then you can find vertical component. So there is no point making horizontal component, vertical component separately. One component, if you know, other component can be found because the angle is already included in these three elements. Okay, now, so for that reason, they had the option to choose between one of them. They have chosen horizontal component. And it's important to know horizontal component because your compass will actually align in the direction of horizontal component, right? Actual magnetic field may be this way. Look here. Actual magnetic field may be this way in my area, let's say. That doesn't mean your compass will go up and become like this. Why? Because your compass is free to move this way only. Understanding or not? On the top, there is a case. Glass will be the glass. It will not break the glass and go up like that. Anyways, it cannot move freely this way. Compass is free to move this way. So if your Earth's magnetic field is this way, students, if the Earth's magnetic field is this way, this will have two components, one horizontal component, one vertical component. So your compass needle will align in whose direction? Horizontal component. Okay, now, is it clear what I explained? Any vector has two components, you know. So if this is Earth's magnetic field, it will have two components. Your compass will not come here, okay? Don't think compass will come up like this. Your compass will stay in the direction of the horizontal component. Okay. Now let us try to show these things in a picture. So look carefully. Imagine this is the place where I live. Somewhere here I live. So what I do, I make a plane, vertical plane, which contains my place, me, and my magnetic axis, let's say. Then this will be what meridian? If this plane contains me and magnetic axis, then this meridian will be called what meridian? Magnetic meridian or geographic meridian? Magnetic meridian. Okay. Magnetic meridian. Okay, meaning this way if you keep going, you will reach magnetic north. So magnetic axis is here. You are living here. Make a vertical plane, not horizontal plane. Not horizontal plane, vertical plane. Okay. Then let us say this is the plane. Now this you have to imagine, okay? This is the plane that contains my place and magnetic axis. Matlab, if you keep going this way, you will reach geographic north. So this is your geographic meridian. Okay, students. So please try to understand these two lines, one line here, one line here, are not as I have shown in the diagram. Actually, they are like this, like this, like this. Are you understanding? They are not like this. Okay, this is horizontal. This is horizontal. This is vertical. This is horizontal. So this plane contains my place and magnetic axis, which is called magnetic meridian. This plane contains my place and geographic meridian. So that is called geographic meridian, geographic north, sorry. So that is called geographic meridian. Now, what was this angle called? This is this angle. So if these are the two meridians, I'm talking about this angle. So it is horizontal angle. So this angle is your declination or inclination, D or I. This is your declination. Okay. What symbol I wrote? Theta. Okay. Now I told you Earth's magnetic field will be in this plane, in magnetic meridian. So let us say the Earth's magnetic field is directed this way, in this plane, okay, not that plane, this plane. So this is your Earth's magnetic field. You can see this is Earth's magnetic field, this is horizontal. So therefore this angle is what we have called dip. This angle is what we have called dip or inclination. Now you can take two components of this B. One component here, one component here, right? So this component of the Earth's magnetic field is along the horizontal. So this is your BH, and this is your vertical component, BV. This is delta. Okay, I hope everybody is understanding this diagram. Imagine this is the Earth's magnetic field in the magnetic meridian. Take one component here, take one component here. This is horizontal component. This is vertical component. So which three are called magnetic elements? This theta, this delta, and this BH. Why B and BV are not called? Arey Baba, if you know BH and B, if you know BH and delta, you can find this also, this also. So let us now derive some small relations between these quantities. So from diagram, tan of this dip will be equal to what? Opposite side is this. Opposite side represents BV. Adjacent side represents BH. Right? This is adjacent side. So try to remember this formula. Tan of inclination, which is called dip, is vertical component of magnetic field by horizontal component of magnetic field, Earth's magnetic field. And suppose I want to find total magnetic field. Then this is one component, this is another component. So I can write root over BV square plus BH square. Correct or not? Understood this also, right? This is your hypotenuse, this is your opposite side, this is your adjacent side. So use Pythagoras theorem. And if you want BH, it will be B cos delta. And if you want BV, it will be B sin delta. Because this is the horizontal component of B. So adjacent component will be cos, opposite component will be sin. Then if you divide this and this, you will get this. If you divide this equation and this equation, BB will cancel. BV by BH will be sin by cos, which will be tan. Done, students? Okay. Is there anyone who has used compass while traveling to some place, maybe while tracking and all? If yes, just mention to me yes. Anyone who has used compass while tracking? Nowadays the GPS and all are there, but sometimes your GPS may not, the signal may not reach. Mahek has used. Okay, very good, Mahek. Okay, Pratibha has used. All Carmel people are very adventurous people. Other students have not used. Okay. Later one question will come, like if the compass is showing in geometry box, it would be there. No, I'm saying to use it, not to see it or just play with it. I'm saying to use it to find direction. So while going somewhere, you need a map, obviously. Without map, you can't just use it. Okay, with map and compass, you can find out the direction. And that time, students, declination is very important, because the magnetic field, where is the Earth's magnetic field pointing, if you remember? Let me show you once more. This is your magnetic meridian. Magnetic meridian, right? Now Earth's magnetic field may be somewhere here. Correct or not? Now your compass will not go this side. No, your compass cannot stay this way. It is free to move horizontally. So this is your B, this is your BH. So your compass will point along BH. Point along BH means it will point along which point? Magnetic north. So the compass will show north, but you are not going along north. You are actually going towards which point? Magnetic north. Understanding or not? This part you are understanding, students? The compass is showing north, but if you go in that direction, you will reach magnetic north. Are you understanding? Okay. So that's why it is important that if you want to go to the true north, this is also called true north. Geographic north is also called your true north. So if you want to go there, you have to take care of this declination. So if you don't take care of this declination, in some compass, no, there are arrangements to do. In some compass, there are no arrangements. So you have to do some calculation and then keep walking. So physics is useful. You can see, right? Okay. So if you want to reach north, and if you follow the compass, you will reach here. And the gap is around some 500 kilometers like that. So it is not a small gap. Okay, now quickly tell me angle of dip at equator. At equator, what will be dip? Approximately. Anyone? 0. Very good. Why 0? Because you know Earth's magnetic field. Earth's magnetic field makes some angle with horizontal. Yes or no? That angle is called dip. In equator, I told Earth's magnetic field will go like this. So it will be parallel to the ground. So angle will be 0. Okay, and angle of dip at poles will be approximately 90 degrees. So keep these two things in your mind for MCQs and all, maybe for CET purpose. NEET also they may ask sometimes. Okay, so try to remember it. So basically the theory part of the chapter is over. Let us do some problems. Okay. Numerical exercise 5.1 you see. Everyone, numerical exercise 5.1. So this chapter is over, students. Now this is a theory based chapter. Okay, see question number 1. Simple question, listen carefully. A closely wound solenoid of 800 turns. So number of turns is 800. And area of cross section. Area of cross section is 2.5 into 10 power minus 4 meters square. Carries a current of 3 ampere. So let us imagine you have a solenoid like this. Okay, it carries a current I, right? So if, oh yes, Curie's law is there. I will do it. Just I was thinking of do that, I forgot. Okay, so look here. Thank you, Nidishwar. Let us solve this problem. So as current flows like this, magnetic moment will be this way. Magnetic moment will be in this direction. So they are saying, first part, what is its associated magnetic moment? What is its magnetic moment? So let us do the first part. Magnetic moment, M. What is the definition? If you consider only one turn, it is what? Current into area. Current into area. Direction will be given by right hand thumb rule. Or how many turns are there? N turns are there. So just multiply with number of turns. So that is the magnetic moment of this solenoid. If you remember, the first topic which I did in this was to show you that solenoid behaves like a bar magnet. You remember, long derivation we did. Solenoid behaves like bar magnet. So if solenoid behaves like bar magnet, solenoid also should have magnetic moment. So magnetic moment is current into area, number of turns. So please multiply and tell me the answer, somebody. 800, 2.5 into 10 power minus 4 into 3. 0.6. No power, huh? 0.6. Unit will be what? Current is ampere, area is meter square. So that is the first part of the question. So please remember, solenoid will behave like a bar magnet whose magnetic moment is given by this formula, current times area. And you know that this solenoid will also produce its magnetic field inside. And that magnetic field, if they ask, you know the formula, mu naught Ni, small n, but not this capital N. Okay, second part, what they are saying? Second part, they are saying, if the solenoid is free to turn about vertical axis, so it is free to turn this way. So this is the solenoid, it is free to turn this way. So if it is free to turn this way, the axis is vertical, right? This is the axis. So the solenoid is free to rotate about vertical axis, and a uniform horizontal magnetic field of 0.25 Tesla is applied. Is applied means it is external. So they have applied some uniform magnetic field, external, okay? So second part, let us do. Students, be careful. This is not the magnetic field produced by the solenoid itself. No. This is the external magnetic field. How much is the external magnetic field they told? Value, can you tell me quickly? What is the value? 0.25 Tesla. And at what angle they have applied with the axis? At what angle? 30 degree. So the angle is 30 degree, right? So they are asking you to calculate torque. Now what is the formula for torque? Just like a dipole in a magnetic field experiences a torque, this solenoid, which acts like a dipole, will also experience a torque. The formula is mb sin theta. M we calculated 0.6, magnetic field is 0.25, theta is 30 degrees, so sin 30 degree will be half. What is the final answer? (7.5 into 10 power minus 2). 7.5 into 10 power minus 2 Newton meter. Okay, please do the calculation part. Okay. Fine, this is done, right? Second question, let us do quickly. 3 questions are only there. This chapter, no, is usually not used for numericals. So even if they ask, they will ask such common questions. Question number 2, you see. A circular coil of 16 turns and radius 10 centimeters. So circular coil is there. Radius is 16, sorry, number of turns is 16. Radius is 10 centimeter, which I can write 0.1 meter. It carries a current I, let's say, that is equals to 0.75 ampere. Rests with its plane normal to an external magnetic field. So the plane of the coil is normal perpendicular to some external magnetic field. What is the value of the magnetic field? 5 into 10 power minus 2 Tesla. The coil is free to rotate about an axis in its plane perpendicular to the field direction. So matlab, if this is the coil and magnetic field they told is applied perpendicular to the plane, the coil is free to rotate this way, they are saying. It is free to rotate about an axis which is perpendicular to magnetic field. Okay. Now why will it rotate? All of you know that already. Imagine this is the current carrying loop. Then you know magnetic field is this way. Sorry, magnetic moment is this way, right? Now if you apply magnetic field this way only, perpendicular to the plane, the torque will be how much right now? Torque will be right now 0. But if you solpa rotate this, if you rotate this slightly like this, you slightly rotate this way, then your magnetic field is here, M will come here. So if you leave it, what will happen? That M, that magnetic moment will try to come parallel to magnetic field. So as it is trying to come parallel, it will experience a torque and try to come this way. As it is coming like this, once it becomes parallel, torque will be 0. But because of inertia, it will continue to go slightly this side. Then again, M will try to come this way. So that way your current loop will keep oscillating. Okay. So they are asking you, when the coil is turned slightly, as I told you, if the coil is turned slightly and released, it oscillates with a frequency. Frequency they have told 2 per second. Matlab 2 hertz. What is the moment of inertia they are asking? Moment of inertia. Now there is a big problem. This current I am writing capital I. For moment of inertia also we write capital I. So what I'll do, I'll write capital I here and I'll write small I here. Okay, this diagram is better. Yeah, this diagram is better than this one. So what we will do, first we will find the magnetic moment. So magnetic moment, what is the formula? N into current into area. This time students, area is not given directly. You will have to calculate N into current into pi r square, because it is a circle, no? So number of turns is 16. Array. Be careful, be careful. I'm saying to myself, don't worry. This I is current. So this current is 0.75. Pi value is 3.14. Radius square will be 0.01. Let me remove this now. 0.01. Okay, this is separate. So if you do the calculation, you should get 0.376. Is it correct? Ampere meter square. 0.376. Check once. Yeah. So this is your magnetic moment, right? Now, I have given you on the first day of this chapter formula for time period of oscillation. So time period of oscillation of magnetic dipole in external magnetic field. In external magnetic field, the formula for time period, and that formula is important. Even if numericals may not come, sometimes for 2 marks, they will only ask the formula and they will tell you to explain the symbols. So only formula you will have to write. So please remember the formula. T equal to 2 pi root over I by mv. So this is the formula for your time period of a magnetic dipole when it oscillates in a magnetic field because of the torque. This I, you have to be very careful, is moment of inertia. M is the magnetic moment. Okay. So here time period was not given, frequency was given. So frequency is 1 by time period. So I can write frequency as 1 by 2 pi root over mb divided by I. Okay, students. Then what you do? You square both the sides and then substitute. So let us square it. So frequency square will be 1 by 4 pi square into square of this will be mb divided by I. I want moment of inertia. So moment of inertia will come this side. mb divided by frequency square. So 1 by 4 into 3.14 square. M we calculated 0.376. Magnetic field, how much was applied? Magnetic field was 5 into 10 power minus 2. Magnetic field was 5 into 10 power minus 2 Tesla, and frequency was given 2, so 2 square. Okay, students, so this is your moment of inertia. Please do the calculation. You should get 0.0119 into 10 power minus 2, which you can write 1.19 into 10 power minus 4. Check the answer once. Kg meter square, because moment of inertia is mr square. Calculation is correct. Just once you check. This multiplied with this, divide by this, divide by this, divide by this. Then into 10 power minus 2. Or you can do it whenever later on also when you are free. So calculation part, you have to do if you want to get 5 marks, right? It's correct, no, Sumedha? Okay. The third question, students, I'm going to do it in tomorrow's class. Tomorrow's is recorded video will be there. So tomorrow's class, I will be doing this third question. Plus, I will be doing, why I'm doing third question tomorrow is because it is more important for a MCQ type question. Okay, so I will be doing third question tomorrow, including some MCQs which are in your transient material, which is given to all of you. So NEET questions also will be there. So please try to not skip that video thinking that it is only for advanced. That is the first thing. Second thing, as Abhishek, I think somebody was telling, Curie's law is something which I forgot to do. Anyways, I would have done it. So listen carefully, very simple it is. Curie's law in paramagnetism. Curie's law in paramagnetism. Very simple. 2 minutes, it will be over. So what is Curie's law in paramagnetism? Look here. The magnetization, capital M, is expected to be proportional to the external magnetic field. B naught. Yes or no? Quickly. Y or N? No, matlab I will explain. The more is the army, the more is the external magnetic field, the more the dipoles will come in the same direction. So more is the external magnetic field. The more is the external magnetic field, the more will be your magnetization, right? Okay. Then it is also directly proportional to, what do you think? Temperature, it should be directly proportional to temperature, or do you think it should be inversely proportional to temperature? Temperature plays what part, do you think? Does it help in the alignment of the dipoles, or does it try to destroy the alignment? It tries to destroy the alignment. So it is inversely proportional to temperature. When we studied, students, when we studied Curie's law in our days, we used to write like this. Okay, but that is okay because B naught is nothing but mu naught into H, and mu naught is just a constant, right? So if this is proportional to this, this is also proportional to this. But I'm doing it the NCERT way. So this law is what is called Curie's law. But then you try to simplify this slightly. So M I can write equal to some constant C which we write V naught by T. Okay. Then you can write B naught as mu naught into H. Now you know that B naught is mu naught into H. So you substitute this here, you will get M equal to C mu naught H by T. Then H, if you bring this side, C mu naught by T. What was this called? This ratio of M by H. It was nothing but magnetic susceptibility. Magnetic susceptibility, which is C mu naught by T. So from this formula, it is very clear the magnetic susceptibility of a paramagnetic substance is inversely proportional to absolute temperature. Is proportional to absolute temperature. Okay, here absolute means temperature in Kelvin scale. So the magnetic susceptibility is inversely proportional to temperature. Understood or not? So this is true for only paramagnetic substances where there are dipoles. Each atom has dipole. So when temperature becomes more, that randomness increases. So when temperature becomes more, randomness increases, so magnetization decreases. When you apply more stronger magnetic field, your magnetization increases. So these two will decide magnetization. Then if you substitute magnetic field as mu naught H and bring H this side, you can say this ratio is nothing but magnetic susceptibility. So magnetic susceptibility is only inversely proportional to temperature because these two are constant. And this C is called Curie's constant. And when I say Curie's law, it is not Madame Curie, it is the husband, Pierre Curie. In ferro, it doesn't work because in ferro there are domains. So even if temperature changes, because within the domains there is very strong forces between the dipoles, this law is not obeyed by ferromagnetism. So please remember, this law is obeyed only by para. So if they ask you, give one difference between para and ferro only, then you can say this: Curie's law is obeyed by paramagnetic materials. Curie's law is not obeyed by ferromagnetic materials. Tell me one last question. If you keep heating a ferromagnetic material, now I told you the temperature will not increase the randomness, but if you increase too much, then do you think the ferromagnetic material one day will lose all its domains and become paramagnetic? As you keep increasing the temperature very high, maybe you have converted into liquid only. Do you expect or not? Yes, you increase the temperature. I hope you know that bar magnets, if you increase the temperature, loses its magnetism, right? So if the temperature is increased, ferromagnetic materials can become paramagnetic material. Okay, so there is a temperature called transition temperature, okay, or critical temperature. Critical temperature. Okay, write the definition quickly. So it is the temperature. It is the temperature above which ferromagnetic material becomes paramagnetic material. Basically what happens is all those domains are broken and now it acts like paramagnetic material. Very high temperature it is, but very, very high. For normal changes in temperature, it does not depend so much. But once the temperature is very high, once it crosses this critical temperature, then your ferromagnetic material becomes paramagnetic material. And once it becomes paramagnetic material, it will now obey Curie's law. So for this law, for Curie's law is written this way. So susceptibility equal to mu naught C divided by, before we wrote what here? Quickly. Only 1 minute is there. What we wrote here before? T. Now we have to write T minus Tc. Why T minus Tc? Because this law is true only when temperature is greater than critical temperature. Understood or not? So only when this T is greater than this, then it becomes para, and once it becomes para, this law will be true for paramagnetic material. But once ferro has become para, that's why this minus Tc is important. Thank you. Don't miss tomorrow's class, students, please.